everyone.
This meeting is being recorded.
Welcome to the Vocational Nursing and Psychiatric Technicians November 2021 board meeting. My name is Dr. President. I would like to call this meeting
Kind of fun it.
at 9:11. First, some housekeeping on how this meeting is conducted. This meeting is the WebEx on Friday, November 18, 2019.
Dr. Mountain,
Yes.
the moderator, we're having problems with your microphone. Can't hear you.
I noticed some earlier just from the WebEx that it sounded wavy. Is it still sounding wavy?
No, it's not wavy, but your microphone is cutting in and out.
Got to be WebEx, not me. All
There
right.
there you go, right there. Sounds loud and clear. Just whatever you're doing right now. Sounds good.
Awesome. I'd like to start over with what people need to do. Board members and staff. I asked the board members and staff to mute their microphones to eliminate background noise, and when they are ready to speak, they can unmute. WebEx has a feature to virtually raise your hand, and I ask board members to use this function after each agenda item if they would like to comment or have questions. If we need a motion, I will call for a motion, and any board member can raise their hand, identify themselves, and make a motion. If you are seconding a motion, please raise your hand, unmute, identify yourself, and second the motion. I will take a roll call vote after each motion. Again, please identify yourself by name each time you speak so our audience knows who is speaking. We will take public comment on each agenda item. If you wish to provide public comment, click on the Q&A button near the bottom center of your WebEx session. This brings up the Q&A chat box. To request time to speak, make sure the Ask menu is set to all panelists and type, "I would like to make a public comment." Attendee lines will be unmuted in the order the requests are received, and you will be allowed to present public comment. Please note, your line will be muted at the end of the allotted public comment duration, which is 3 minutes. You will be notified when you have 10 seconds remaining. Your name is not necessary, but please indicate how you would like us to identify you. For the sake of efficiency, the EO will respond directly to public comment or defer to the appropriate staff person or counsel. For questions directed to the board members, I will either answer the question or direct it to the board members. At this time, the board would like to thank Ms. Cheryl Turner for her 4 years of service. I will now do an alphabetical roll call to establish quorum. We are happy to welcome 2 new board members to their very first BVMPT meeting. So when I call your name to establish quorum, please briefly introduce yourselves with where you come from, a few things about yourself, what interests you about serving on the BVMPT, but remember, no pressure. I will now
Madam Chair, this is Elaine Yamaguchi, and if I could break in just ever so quickly. We have a couple of phone-in numbers in the participants, and I wonder if we could identify them. They may be 2 of the members that we're looking for. So we have a 310-849, and we have a 626-497. It might be Miss Nieblas and or Miss Brown.
do a mic check.
This is the moderator. I have attempted to reach out to 310-849. This person has not responded. I've asked to please identify them, and they have not. As the other number, Elaine, that you mentioned, I do not no longer see it in the attendee phone.
Great, thanks for checking. Please proceed. Sorry I interrupted.
All right, we will do the roll call vote. Taisha Brown. So, Elaine, that's one of the numbers you think is trying to call in, yes?
It was, but Vicki hasn't been able to get a reading from them.
Okay. Alita Carpenter,
Yes.
John Dirking,
Good morning, John Dirking. Welcome to all, especially our new members.
Abraham Hill,
Good morning. Here.
Adrian Luce.
I'm here. Good morning.
Thank you. Ken Maxey,
Good morning, everyone. Present.
Nellie Niblas, Tara Brooks. Tara,
Yes, hi, this is Tara. Yes,
thank you. I'll get your name right, I promise. And I'm Carol Mountain.
I know you will.
Based on the roll call, we have established quorum. We're ready for item 2. Ms. Yamaguchi, would you please introduce yourself and your staff?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you all so much for attending our meeting. Elaine Yamaguchi, the Executive Officer. With us, we have our Assistant Executive Officer, Vicki Lyman, our Division Chiefs, Candace Rainey and Antoinette Wood, our Supervising Nursing Education Consultant, Marie Cordero, and our NECs, Charlene De La Rosa, Cindy Fairchild, Jessica Gomez, Beth DeYoung, Faye Silverman, Judith McLeod. We have our managers, Doris Pierce, Jay Prouty, Shelley Brown, and other team members, Maggie Archibald, Geraldine Marcino, and of course our host and budget analyst, Vicki Saavedra. If I missed you, I do apologize. I'm looking at several different things at the same time. But anyways, that would be our team here present for the day. Council?
Madam Chair, I may please board members, Ken Swenson, Board General Counsel.
Good morning. This is Christy Shields, an attorney with the Department of Consumer Affairs, Legal Affairs Division's Regulatory Review Unit. Thank you.
Thank you to those who introduced themselves. I believe we're ready to move on to item 3, approval of minutes. We have 2 sets of minutes to approve. Minutes for August 20, 2021.
Excuse me, I hate to interrupt. This is the moderator. I just received a phone call from Yali. If you can give me 2 minutes, I need to send her an email with a link so she can come in.
Vicki, do we need to wait?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you. Let's see. So we have 2 sets of minutes to approve. Minutes for August 20, 2021. Can I have a motion to approve and a second?
Alita Carpenter, move to approve the minutes for August 20th.
I
John
second.
Dirking. Okay. Oh,
Sorry. Sorry. Go ahead, John. Go ahead.
no, that's okay. I can second. Thank you.
Any discussion or question? Seeing, oh, Ms. Carpenter, you have your hand raised. Thank you.
I apologize.
No worries. Is there any public comment?
I see no public comments.
Thank you. I will do a roll call and abstains.
Carol, this is the moderator. Who had any again the microphone?
Hearing you.
I was just gonna say, I'm having trouble hearing the moderator too. It may be a WebEx issue. Can you guys hear me? This is Tara.
Tara, you sound awesome.
Oh, okay. Well, I have the mic up to my mouth and I'm, I'm like, let me make sure you can hear. But it
You're
could be
very
a
clear.
weather. Okay, thank you.
This is the moderator. Are you able to hear me clearly now?
Yes, much better. Thank you.
Yes.
Yes.
Is Miss Brown on? Is Miss Brown?
Madam Chair, again, you're starting to cut in and out.
I'm doing the same thing that y'all doing, right up by the mic.
It's just an imperfect system.
Yeah, they are having these same problems yesterday at the, they had these same problems yesterday.
Yeah, I'm afraid this is an atmospheric thing, so we'll do the best we can.
All right.
Dr. Mountain, I can't hear you at all.
My sincere apologies. I do have a problem.
Madam Chair and members, if I might make a suggestion, for a few moments, maybe Mr. Deerking could facilitate the meeting.
I'm going to sign out of WebEx and sign back on.
Yes, that was what I was suggesting. Maybe you just rejoin the meeting and perhaps your connection will be better. Try joining through your browser and not the app.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, this is Tara. So just for entertainment purposes, until Dr. Mountain rejoins, maybe we should meet in person the next time so I can meet you all face to face. Wouldn't that be nice?
Oh, Miss Rooks, I would so love to have an in-person meeting.
We have our mask and some people have been vaccinated. I'm just throwing it out there.
No, I absolutely agree. And we would possibly be able to meet in February. The board members would have to bring in, of course, the proof of vaccination and or be ready to test at the site. And again, the audience would have to do the same and then sit, every other seat. We're looking into a way to be able to do it because you're right. It would be wonderful to be able to actually see each other in person.
Really love to meet you all, but of course, I'm not speaking on behalf of everyone. Maybe some people are not quite there yet, but I am more of a I want to see everybody person. But yeah, one day soon, huh? We can't be in this forever.
I'm
It
with
would
you,
certainly
Tara.
alleviate some technical issues.
I'm with you, Tara. This is Alita.
Oh, Miss Alita, I can't wait to meet you.
I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, and it looks like Miss Neblis has been able to join us. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, indeed.
Yes, ma'am, we can.
Awesome.
We can even see you. What a treat.
This is Director Nellie. If we can close your camera, please.
I'm trying to close the camera. I'm trying to find it. Where is
Okay,
it?
great.
Stop video.
So maybe while Dr. Mountain is back on, but I was actually going to put the new board members on the spot and ask them to tell us a little bit about themselves. But if you, Dr. Mountain, if you want to get back to business, that's perfectly fine with me.
Dr. Mountain, do you want to check your microphone for me, please?
Yes, I'd love. Vicki,
Unfortunately, Dr. Mountain, you're still cutting in and out and I can barely hear you.
so I cannot see the blue ring when you're talking. That's what's happening. It's not, I'm right on top of my microphone and it just doesn't pop up for me.
So if I might make a suggestion, suggestion one would be maybe asking Mr. Deer King to take over for the moment. Suggestion two would be to pause. Suggestion three would be, I don't know if anybody wants to sing a song.
Dr. Mountain, can you try talking directly into the microphone again, and let's see if we can hear you this time.
I have unmuted my phone and I am talking to it. And I just took my computer to the shop. I haven't had this problem all week.
Dr. Mountain, I'm pretty sure it is your internet connection. Trouble. Because there is nothing on our part or our end. And I do believe that it's your internet connection that's giving you some trouble.
Certainly possible I had this problem before. Mr. Durking wants to go ahead. That would be back onto my.
Dr. Mountain, I can't hear anything. My apologies.
Dr. Mountain, this is Christy Shield. I've had this problem myself because I'm not close enough to the Wi-Fi router and the signal is weak. So can you check your Wi-Fi signal on your computer and see what it looks like? Or are you directly connected to the internet?
I am directly connected. Okay.
Okay, well then that couldn't be the problem then.
This is Adrienne Luce. Can I suggest that Mr. Deer King serve as the host in place of take over as host?
All right, this is Board Counsel Ken Swenson. What I recommend is that Mr. Deer King assume the chair temporarily, and that Dr. Mountain attempt to phone in rather than use internet connection. There's a motion and a second to approve the first set of minutes from August 20th, 2021. The next step would be board discussion followed by public comment and a roll call vote. Thank you.
Is that agreeable to the chair, Dr. Mountain?
Dr. Mountain has logged out.
Okay, is she trying to reestablish connection through the phone rather than the internet?
Mr. Deer King, this is Elaine. I believe she actually did say or request rather that you do start to assume the chair while she tried to figure things out. So if you wouldn't mind going ahead, that'd be terrific.
Oh, certainly. Thank you very much. So on the floor is approval of the minutes for the August 20th, 21st meeting. We have a motion and a second. Are there any discussions or questions by board members? Hearing none, seeing none. Or is there any public comment?
There are none at this time.
Thank you very much. So let's do a roll call vote and establish who is in favor, opposed, or abstains. Aisha? Did we lose connection here?
Mr. Deerking, I'm not certain that Ms. Brown is logged on.
Oh, I'm sorry. Ms. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Adrian?
Adrian Luce, I abstain, please.
Thank you, Ms. Luke. Mr. Maxey? Is Mr. Maxey connected?
He was.
I'm sorry, I had to unmute again, I guess. Yeah, sorry about that.
Thank you very much. And Nellie?
I abstain.
Thank you very much. And Tara? Ms. Rokes?
Yes, yes, that will be a yes.
And I am also a yes, so the motion is approved. We have next item. Was the chair going to vote? Dr. Mountain?
Dr. Mountain doesn't seem to have, oh, there she is. There she is. Great.
Yamaguchi,
There we go.
can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. I went and I hope I fixed my bandwidth. I hope this is going to work. All right, I'm not sure where we are. Are we at approving the minutes for August 20?
Yeah, we just approved the minutes for the August 20th meeting.
Thank you so much. So we would now approve the meeting minutes for August 21, 2020. These are
Mountain, this is the moderator. We cannot hear you.
my apologies, Vicki. I did everything I could to fix this. And Mr. Durkin, just keep going. There must be something outside with my internet because I show full bars.
Okay, we can hear you right now. Small, we can hear you.
Yeah, but this is no way to conduct a meeting. Minutes for August 2020.
Dr. Mountain, we suggest that you call in. Perhaps we could hear you more appropriately
All right.
if you phone in.
I was thinking I would try that. I will do that.
Okay, great.
Upon the unanimous consent of the members of the board, the gavel can pass back to Mr. Dearking to conduct the meeting and serve as chair in the absence of Dr. Mountain.
All right, if there's no objections, we'll proceed according to Mr. Swenson's suggestions. So that brings us to the excerpted meeting minutes from August 21st, 2020. On the advice of counsel, these excerpts of the minutes are presented for review and approval. They're less detailed minutes for this meeting than have been previously approved by the board. The discussion of the proposed fee increases from that meeting have been expanded in this document to provide better detailed history to support our packet for the rulemaking action. Given that, though, can we have a motion and approval for a motion and second to approve these minutes?
So moved. This is Kenneth Maxey.
Thank you, Mr. Maxey.
This is Abraham Hill. I'd like to second that motion.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hill. Do we have any discussion or questions? Any public comment? Public comment. Very well. I'm sorry, is there public comment?
No, there.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's do a roll call and establish who is in favor, oppose, or abstains. Is Ms. Brown now with us?
Not yet, sir.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Carpenter?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Ms. Lewis?
I abstain. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Maxey?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Nelly?
I abstain.
Thank you. And Ms. Rooks?
Yes.
And I am a yes, so the motion is approved.
This is
That
the
brings us-
monitor. I do see Dr. Mountain. She is on the call-in line.
Okay, very good. Dr. Mountain?
Thank you. Can you hear me now?
Beautiful. Thank you.
Wonderful. Huge relief. All right. We are at item 4, fiscal budgets. Updates from the DCA budget staff. We have staff from DCA budget office to provide an update on our fiscal condition and answer any questions that board members may have.
Good morning. This is Matt Nishamini from the budget office. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Very good. So we're going to be going over the fund condition statement. We have 2 fund condition statements for this agenda item. And I'll go over it. Thank you for bringing that up. And I'll go through it very slowly for the new board members and for folks who are maybe less familiar with the fund condition statement. A fund condition statement is essentially a bank statement. We're going to read it top to bottom and left to right. And it's going to show the starting balance, and it's going to show inflows of revenues, and then outflows of expenditures, and it's going to end with an ending balance. And then that ending balance will carry up to the next column to the top, and then so on and so forth. So if we look at sort of in the middle of the page, we say pre-actual, PY. PY stands for prior year, and that's the 2021 fiscal year. And it shows that we started with about $4.251 million. And then the board has its various revenues. So that would include delinquent fees, renewal fees, and that's the primary generator of revenues. We have other regulatory fees, other regulatory license and permits. Those are initial license and exam fees. And then we have some smaller items, income from surplus money investments, a sheet from unclaimed checks and warrants, miscellaneous revenues, and settlements and adjustments. Total revenues were 17.72 million in the prior year. There was also an operating transfer. This is just sort of a relic from the 2020 Budget Act. It was just $3,000, very little, but that also came into the fund. Moving down under the expenditures, the 1111. This is the board's appropriation and what it spent of its appropriation last year. So we have not closed the 2021 books yet, but we are in pre-closing. And so our best estimates right now is that the board is spent $16.638 million in the prior year. Moving down, there's supplemental pension payments of $246,000. This was an unfunded liability that was identified a few years ago, and the bargaining units worked out an agreement to prop up the pension payment. So that's what that $246,000 is. And then we have statewide pro rata of $1,014,000. So statewide pro rata is a percentage. It trends to about 7 or 8% of the cash revenue that's going through the fund. And this pays for the governor's office, the state controller's office, and the like, the centralized state services. All told, all the outflows came to $17.898 million, which resulted in an ending balance of $4,076,000. And then the bottom line is months in reserve. So that $4,076,000 represents 2.4 months that the board could operate in the event no more additional revenues were added to the fund. And then that 4 million, you'll see, goes up to the current year. CY stands for current year, and that's our 21-22 year. And then moving down again, you're going to have your inflows of revenues. And we show revenues going out. So BY is budget year plus one. We're actually showing 6 years displayed here. A similar fund condition statement is presented upon the release of the governor's budget, but it just shows 3 columns. We're showing 6 columns here because we want to show the extended horizon and show that this board is structurally imbalanced, which means that revenues, so the revenues in the current year are 17.879 million. But if we go down and we look down at total expenditures, total outflows are 20,194,000. So that's called a structural imbalance where revenues are less than expenditures. And then you can see at the bottom of the CY column, we're down to $1.761 million. Well, that's just 1 month of reserve. And then moving left to right, we can see that that reserve balance goes down to negative 0.3 months in the budget year and continues to accelerate. So structural imbalances accelerate over time. And that's because you'll notice that the costs to fund the board are going incrementally up. And they go up because those are attributable to bargaining unit agreements, staffing costs, retirement costs, costs to operate the board will increase over time. And so a structural imbalance will increase over time. So this fund condition is very similar to the one that I presented when I first came to this board in August of 2020. And at that time, I think we showed a negative fund balance of 0.4 months in the budget year, 22-23. So very similar picture. Do we have any questions from the board members about this fund condition statement? So this is a status quo. This is our best estimate of what is going on right now. If there are no questions, we can look at the second page 2. And page 2 is the same one, but what we've done is we've added some additional revenues. So if we look at the revenues lines on the left side there, we see delinquent fees. And then we see a second line, delinquent fee increase, effective 1/1/23. So that would be January 1 of next year, in about 13 months. And then we see renewal fees and receive renewal fee increase effective 1/1/23, and so on and so forth. So we've got other regulatory fees increase. So this is the regulatory package we're targeting. This is agenda item 10A1IC, which will be heard in a few minutes. And the target would be for a 1/1/23 implementation of the regulatory package. Now this fund condition, so all of these revenue adjustments, revenue fee increases, my office has, we work with the board to do these revenue projections. So in the 22-23 year, because it's effective January, that's only a half a year of revenues in the 22-23 fiscal year. And it's a little over $3 million, $3.1 million. And then if you look at the 23-24 column, that's showing full year revenues. And that's about $6.2 million from this regulatory package. So the board's fees are set in statute, and the board has many fees, 30 some fees, and they're set in statute, but then they're also set in by regulations. And the regulations are the actual amount that's charged to your licensees or your applicants. And currently we have quite a bit of room underneath the statutory caps. So if we were to increase our current regulatory fee structure to the statutory caps, what this is saying is that we would raise about $3 million in the budget year and about $6 million ongoing. Now, we've also added new school program initial license fees effective 1/1/22 and continuing approval fee, school fees. So these projections are related to AB 1536, the new school program. And these revenues projections came from the board. So my office was not involved in these, but the board provided us, which is customary upon these type of revenue projections. So if we look down at the expenditures are the same as in the previous fund condition statement. But if we look all the way at the bottom, we see now that we've rectified that structural imbalance. So now we have revenues that can support ongoing operations. And so if we look at the months in reserve, we're going from 1 to 1.6 to 3.6 to 5.1 to 6.5. So a prudent, healthy fund balance reserve is somewhere between 3 and 6 months. And what this is saying is that the regulatory package that you will be presented in front of you will eliminate that structural imbalance. So let me just remind you, and I said this to you before, is that the board has 3 options to eliminating a structural imbalance. You can either increase your fees, you could reduce costs, or you could do some combination of both if you want to eliminate or reduce your structural imbalance. These are policy decisions that you board members need to decide and need to take action on. Or there is actually a 4th option where you could do nothing. But you'll see that doing nothing will cause this fund to become insolvent. And agenda item 5, which your Reg Counsel will be presenting in a few minutes, she's going to go over the outcomes if you were to take no action and the repercussions of taking no actions. So that concludes my presentation. However, I'm going to stay on the line here through agenda item 10AIC because when I'm not presenting at board meetings, my job is to manage all of the DCA regulatory packages moving through the budget office, and I assist providing the economic and fiscal analyses for those packages. And I'd like to provide some additional comments and context while Ms. Yamaguchi is very thorough and her memo is thorough. I would like to interject some additional comments and context to that agenda item, if I may. And with that, I'm open to any questions.
Hi, this is Tara, sir. How are you today?
I'm fine, thank you, ma'am.
Good. So I'm trying to look at your presentation on a phone, and it's proven to be very difficult. So please forgive me because I've probably missed some things. And I may not have heard you even say anything about it, but I'm wondering, did the chart show anything about how we've saved? Because I know that that's a projection and we're looking at over time. And of course, nobody wants to be imbalanced, right? We need to have a budget and have it balanced. But I was wondering, did it mention anything about what we've saved in the last couple of years by not traveling? No hotels, no boardrooms to rent. So and I know that that's short term, right? Because we're not going to stay in this pandemic forever. And of course, we'll start traveling. But you mentioned there's 4 different ways to maintain an appropriate budget. And one of the ways you said is that we could, you know, figure out, the 4th option, of course, was to do nothing. And of course, the board is not going to just do nothing. But if we were to try to come up with other ways to save, I guess I'm struggling with, and again, Miss Yamaguchi is just so awesome, and she explains, very eloquently about things. And of course, I guess I still struggle with the only way to balance this all out is to raise fees. And
Yes,
that's
ma'am.
just my personal struggle, right? But
Yes, ma'am.
I know we've saved some money doing that, right? So if we were to just say, just throwing it out there, not speaking for the entire board, that when we are back on track, the pandemic is gone, which I don't see it ever disappearing, but we meet each other in person, that maybe we don't meet but once a year in person, and we save there, So just wondering if I missed something in your presentation, or is this not the appropriate place to
No,
even
ma'am.
ask it?
No, so thank you very much for that question. This presentation did not address that, so let me do that now. So in the prior year, you spent $16.6 million, and you nearly fully exhausted your appropriation. So there was some savings from travel. You're allotted about $152,000 for travel costs, and it was basically you didn't spend any on it. You spent basically zero on it. So there was some savings there. However, one of the main drivers in your costs in recent years and currently and moving forward are your enforcement related activities. So to the extent you guys are taking actions against licensees and those cases are being forwarded to the Attorney General's office, your costs to adjudicate those cases have gone up significantly in recent years. So much so that both of these fund conditions statements display a current year augmentation of $430, meaning that your current budgeted amount for AG and OAH is insufficient by $430,000. That's what you requested last year. And the board has requested AG augmentations in the past 3 years. So we would anticipate, to the extent the board is ramping up or continuing its robust enforcement related activities, that those costs will continue to increase. So the fund condition statements in the current year and ongoing are projected numbers. The only one that are actual numbers are the prior year, and it's pre-actual because again, we have not closed. And because we have not closed the prior year, we do not have current year projections yet. However, those we are rapidly trying to close the books for the prior year, and we should be rolling out with current year projections very soon, hopefully before Christmas. However, we do know that this, oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, this is Dr. Mountain. I actually have 2 questions myself, and one
Yes, ma'am.
related to what you just said.
Yes, ma'am.
You said our fees to the AG went up, and I thought, and I could be mistaken, so I'm just trying to clarify this in my own mind. I thought some of that was related to the fact that we had a backlog and we were trying to address and take care of those constituents as quickly as possible. So would those projected costs stay the same if we had cleared out our backlog?
So,
Very good question.
yeah, I think that that's probably more of an operational question for your enforcement chief on what is in the pipeline related to that. I'm not privy to that information. So the board, the budget office's role is really just to report the numbers. We don't opine and we don't provide recommendations on operational activities. That is the purview and the responsibility of your board, of the board and board staff. So I'm not really privy to that information, but it's our understanding from talking to the board that enforcement activities are going to continue to maintain, be robust and moving into the near future. So we have this penciled in the event you do not require a current year augmentation, then that $430,000 would just remain in the fund.
Thank you. That really helps clarify for me. One other question was, you talked about increase of regulatory or increase of renewal fees for licensees that are already, they're already licensed. You said, would we do that to the highest extent that we are able to ask? And what would that be? Can you tell me what that amount would be so I can get a sense of how much we would be increasing fees?
Yeah, so I think that all of that is in your board packet. So
thank you.
We to the extent the board opts to increase its fees to the statutory maximum, you will see a revenue increase of approximately $6 million per year. But we don't recommend, we're not, again, I'm just here to provide the context that you have those choices. You could either increase your fees, and then that's sort of an a la carte menu for you board members to decide which fees you want to increase. Or you could decrease costs. Again, that's your option. We're not here to tell you what to do. We're just here to tell you what your options are.
This is Nellie. This is Nellie. I have a question. Nellie Nieblas, board member. You mentioned an appropriation. What's the yearly appropriation that the board gets?
Yes, so the annual appropriation is released, the proposed annual appropriation is released every January 10th upon the release of the governor's budget. And then what happens is during the spring, the legislature reviews and analyzes that proposed budget, and based upon, and they may add to it or they may subtract to that proposed budget.
Mr. Nishimene?
Yes.
This is Elaine Yamaguchi. If I could, actually, I think the question that Ms. Nieblas is wanting to ask is something to clarify. BVNPT is a special fund entity, so we're not receiving an appropriation out of the general fund. The governor's budget allocates what is in our own fund for what we consider our operating expenses. And that was encapsulated in the fund condition under operating expenses. So approximately $17 million per year is what we are appropriated to spend each year.
Thank you. You answered the next question that I was gonna ask. So I appreciated that. I appreciate
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Sorry to interrupt you there, Mr. Nishimene.
No, thank you. Yes, so Ms. Yamaguchi is correct. This board receives all of its revenues through licensing related fees. And those fees, those revenues are used for the operations, the licensing, the admin, and the enforcement related activities of this board. There is no general fund monies going into this board. And the current year appropriation is $17.893 million.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Are there any other further questions?
Okay, seeing none, well, thank you. Again, I will stay on the line and provide some additional context to the future to agenda item 10AIC. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Matt. Appreciate it.
This is the moderator. I do see Ms. Carpenter's hand raised.
Thank you.
Again, I apologize.
Oh, okay. So we're ready to move on to item 5, fiduciary responsibilities, liabilities, and governing laws with respect to the fiscal state of the board. And we have a special presentation and discussion from Ms. Christy Shelgi. I hope I didn't massacre your name. From the DCA Legal Counsel, thank you so much for speaking to us.
Thank you, Madam President. Good morning. My name is Christy Shields. I'm an attorney with the Department of Consumer Affairs, Legal Affairs Division. I've recently been assigned to assist this board with development of fee regulations and have been asked to present on this item as it relates to the board's current fund condition that we just discussed and the proposal we will be discussing today at agenda item number 10A1C regarding the proposed fee increases. You've all received the memo I prepared outlining the fiduciary obligations of the board members and its executive officer under California law. Essentially, state law requires the board members and its executive officer to ensure that the board remains solvent and does not attempt to incur expenditures in excess of the board's legally authorized spending authority in the Budget Act. The board members and its executive officer are legally responsible for compliance with the provisions of the Budget Act, as well as other administrative and statutory requirements controlling expenditures. The board members should ensure that all persons who exercise delegated powers over expenditures are thoroughly knowledgeable about all expenditure requirements and adhere to those requirements in the Budget Act. Failure to do so can result in the board ceasing operations and/or personal liability in the amount of the unauthorized expenditures for the board members and its executive officer. So there's a reason that your membership gets the copy of the budget at every board meeting. It's because the board members are legally responsible for the board's budget. To that end, I advise the board members to take all necessary steps to ensure that they remain informed about the status of the board's fund and take all necessary steps within your authority to ensure that the board stays solvent for the foreseeable future. This may include considering fee increases, seeking legislation, having a standing agenda item regarding all activities the staff and the executive officer have undertaken to resolve the current funding issues, and possibly more frequent board meetings to take action as needed to address an emergent issue. With that said, do the board members have any questions for me about this item? So everyone's comfortable with the information? Don't have any questions?
I see no raised hands. Any comments? Thank you so much for that presentation. Next,
I
would like to.
I see Ms. Luce's hand up.
Okay.
This is Adrienne Luce, board member. I very much appreciated the memo and the reminder about our fiduciary duties, which I take very seriously. And I know we all take very seriously. Thank you.
You're welcome. And I think, it's important also for the new members to understand the obligations. I know this item is supposed to be covered in our board member orientation training, but sometimes the actual import or effect of that isn't really felt without further discussion, sometimes people have additional questions, so we're providing this opportunity to the membership.
Much appreciated. Any further comments?
I have a question. Is there a standing item or, sorry, I keep getting muted. Is Okay, I'm hoping it stays.
This is the moderator. You have full control of your microphone.
Okay. I was gonna say, is there a standing item requires in the agenda to basically be able to review the budget at every.
Madam Chair, Lane Yamaguchi, if you don't mind if I jump in and to answer Ms. Nebus's question. Yes, at every board meeting, we will have we will show the board's fund condition, which you know, Mr. Nishimine had kind of illustrated for you. Now, what we don't do every meeting, but you know, we can certainly work on a bit, is that more detailed in and out. You know, what the incoming of revenue and the outgoing of expenses in a real micro level. But what we do plan to do, of course, is once the governor's budget is issued in January, we would probably be able to show for the February board meeting what the governor's budget shows for this board in terms of a little bit more of a micro read of how our that 17 million or so is supposed to be allocated for the year. Is that kind of what you were asking, Ms. Nebus?
Yes, thank you.
Are there further questions?
Board President, I did have one additional comment.
Go ahead.
Okay, so as I mentioned in my presentation, so I wouldn't just have a standing budget item to discuss your budget. I would ask that you consider, and the president and the executive officer set the agendas, but I would suggest that you have an item that's specifically directed to the structural imbalance issues where you can discuss what steps the staff has taken to help make sure that you're spending within your authority, and what any further direction you've given at this meeting, what the progress is. So not just the budget and what the fund condition is, but what is your progress in terms of what steps have been taken administratively or through any board action at this meeting to help correct the structural imbalance. I think I would recommend strongly that you have that update. And of course, at the discretion of the president, there may need to be other meetings if there are serious situations that come up. I would recommend that you consider that going forward, just for your own liability as well as your own managerial control over this fund issue, because ultimately you are the managers of this budget and responsible for it.
Thank you very much for that clarification. Other comments on this topic? All right. Thank you for both of those presentations. Next, I would like to take up an item out of agenda order. The item will be 10AC, fee schedule, discussion and possible action to initiate a rulemaking to amend Title 16, California Code of Regulations, Section 2537, 2537.1, 2590, and 2590.1. Ms. Yamaguchi will present on this item.
Wonderful. Thank you, Madam Chair. And also, again, thank you, Mr. Nishimine and Ms. Shields, for kind of setting the stage for this conversation. What do you see before you first in the memo, and then again in the fund condition statements that Mr. Nishimine walked through with you? We basically have talked about this a bit. And over the past year or so, and this, by the way, was key to the minutes that we asked you to approve, the newly excerpted minutes from last year. What we wanted to make certain we had as we move forward in the regulatory process is a really clear and much more detailed record of the board's discussion in this matter. Mr. Nishimane laid it out quite clearly. Absent any board action at this time, as of probably early 2023, this board would become insolvent. And actually, I think if you might indulge me, to I think Ms. Rooks's point earlier about economies and efficiencies that the board might make to either reduce or eliminate the necessity of the fee increase. It's actually a much larger number. So you're right that by not traveling and by a few other efficiencies over the past 2 years, the board has saved a good amount of money. But when I say a good amount of money, I mean something less than, say, $300,000 over the year. And to normal people like us, that does sound like a lot of money. But when the need is in the millions, it really is hard to make economies and efficiencies that would really, I think, defray those costs, because mostly what we're talking about is, one, the enforcement costs, and two, staffing. Now, the enforcement costs, Mr. Nishimine had begun to just kind of explain that. And the interesting thing about the enforcement costs is they're very high because starting in 2018, this staff was addressing a very, very large backlog. And the nature of the work in enforcement is that you don't see the realized costs until 1 or 2 years out. So it's 2021, which means that a lot of the work that the enforcement staff did in 2019 is being shown now in terms of our charges with the Division of Investigation and with the Attorney General's office. It's still a very large number. And again, I think a lot of you are aware that in 2019, the Attorney General's office rather suddenly and rather significantly increased their fees to us by some 30% without much notice. And that's why we also have the augmentation that Mr. Nishimine had discussed a bit about. So, but that's just a little bit of the foundation of what has been our discussion over the past year or so. Now, what you have before you in the agenda item is, of course, the actual language of the regulations that we need to address. Again, this action would increase our license renewal, our exam application, and all the ancillary fees we have to their statutory limit. And in doing so, we would increase our revenue by about $3 million the first year and about $6 million going forward. And it brings us not to a huge surplus, but it builds us up to a point where we believe we have a fairly prudent reserve for unexpected expenses. Generally speaking, the government entities like to see something like 4 to 6 months of reserve funding in a budget year. Now, this was a hard thing because this time last year, we were still anticipating or hoping at least for a more robust fee schedule for the schools. And at that point, the August 2020 minutes that you looked at again today, we had projected out more the likelihood and the need to increase these fees by some $55 rather than the 80 something that we are projecting now. Essentially, we weren't able to realize the fee schedule for the schools that we had hoped for, but we'll still be working on that. We're certainly going to keep addressing that until we feel like we have a really good, solid, and equitable revenue structure. But like I said, what we have before the board right now is this language, which we will ask you to review and hopefully approve to enable us to move forward. Bluntly, to take no action puts us in a deficit, which we can't do. To change this in significantly, it also kind of blunts our ability to operate to our full extent. And essentially, this is kind of the linchpin of our ability to move forward. I think, you know, as we kind of move forward today, and I think a lot of you have heard a great deal about basically the sunset legislation we had authorized, and the key of that, of course, being the new program approval process. Bluntly, that will be essential for us to be able to continue functioning as a board. It's all linked together. So without, for example, without the fee revenue from this regulatory package, we're not able to expand our operations to actually fulfill our direction from the sunset bill, and so on and so forth. And it's a difficult thing. In the meantime, what I think it's important for the board to note is that the staff went through and as you if you look toward the end of the memo in your packet, and it says list of proposed fee changes, the staff went through and did what we call a desk audit, and it shows you this table shows you what we are currently charging in terms of fees, what the maximum that we are allowed to by law is, and what we are proposing to raise it to right now. And that third column says the actual cost to process. And that's interesting because in almost every category, we spend significantly more than we are charging. And this, by the way, is this table shows you, that column shows you the activities, the staff work specific to each of those fees. Now, what it doesn't show you, though, is the fact that we also, from that fee revenue, pay the rent, we pay for our enforcement program, and we pay for our education division. So, truthfully, in the harder context, the fee increase we're proposing doesn't even cover, you know, the whole of our revenue need, and we're going to need to work on that. So what we have before you here is an analysis really of where these fees go and what the work involved in these fees, processing these transactions, is. So in the short term, as I say, by approving us to move forward with this rulemaking package to increase the fees now to the statutory limit, we basically do manage to bring our operations into the black, which is we need to do, we must do. It helps us build a very small, modest reserve, which we need to do. But it also buys us enough time to work on developing a better, more stable, and more equitable revenue stream. What we plan to do is a lot of things, but one is to work toward a better fee structure for the schools. We will be asking the board to authorize us to contract with a third party to perform a fee analysis, a real study that basically looks at our structure now and the structure we want to have and how we make that, what would be the appropriate levels of fees for the individuals and for the schools and for everything else. So, as I said, it's a hard thing and none of us would want to do this. But at the same time, it is essential that we manage this fund right now. And you know, and not to put too fine a point on it, we can also once we have, I think, that sweet spot defined and that really expert opinion given on what an appropriate fee structure is for both the schools and for our individuals. There's nothing that says that we can't start to ratchet down these individual fees, because you know, the licensees have been carrying the funding for the board in its entirety forever, and we believe that from an equity standpoint, some relief would be appropriate. But until we actually have the expanded and better developed, diversified revenue stream, we can't do that just yet. But I think the board is going to want to talk about that going forward. So at this point, the action that we would recommend, staff would recommend that if the board wants to accept the proposed text as we've presented it in the materials, that the board take action on the motion that we've put in the memo, and I could read it for you if you like, but it is in the memo, and this is as I say, this is the staff's strongest recommendation. Now, should the board want to look at any changes, there's option 2, and you could make that motion as well. Madam Chair?
Thank you, Ms. Yamaguchi. That was actually very informative. And I would appreciate it if you would, you said you would read the proposed motion. Could you do that?
Absolutely. The motion number 1 would be to approve the proposed regulatory text and changes to sections 2537, 2537.1, 2590, and 2590.1 as provided in the materials, and direct staff to submit all approved texts to the Director of Department of Consumer Affairs and to the Business Consumer Services and Housing Agency for review. If no adverse comments are received, to authorize the executive officer to take all steps necessary to initiate the rulemaking process, to make any non-substantive changes to the package, and to set the matter for a hearing. If no adverse comments are received during the 45-day comment period or at the hearing, authorize the executive officer to take all steps necessary to complete the rulemaking and adopt the proposed regulations at sections 2537, 2537.1, 2590, and 2590.1. And as a footnote, by the way, that means that the reason there are those 4 numbers rather than just 2, that reflects the changes that mirror each other in the Vocational Nursing Practice Act and the Psychiatric Technicians Law.
Thank you. That makes a lot more sense. Thank you so much. Can I have a motion to approve and a second, and then we'll have discussion?
Madam President, could I really quickly just explain the motion just to the new members so they understand the process? So first of all, I want to thank Ms. Yamaguchi for that explanation. This would be a short-term fix for the long-term, potentially structural imbalance that could reoccur in the future. As she's noticed, you're going to continue to lose revenue unless you address the fees in the long term. But this would be a short-term fix for you to continue forward over the next few years. Secondly, with respect to the motion, the way our department works is we are subject to other agencies' approval when we file regulations, and those different entities are the Department of Consumer Affairs Director and the Business Consumer Services and Housing Agency, as well as the Office of Administrative Law. And so what the motion does is it tells those control agencies that you've approved the text that's in your packet that Ms. Yamaguchi pointed out, where the underline and strikeout is, those are the rules that you're amending. And then if they all have authority to disapprove or refuse to authorize the filing of these regulations. So that's why we built into the motion that if they authorize it and nothing adverse is received from them, then the rulemaking will proceed along as we have indicated in the packet today. And if we receive no adverse comments from the public, then the rules would be adopted as written in your packet. So did the board members have any questions about that process at all? Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that excellent explanation. Can I have a motion to approve and a second?
Excuse me, Madam President, this is Matt Nishamini again. Can I just
Yes.
provide some additional context briefly?
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. So as we noted before, this proposal will eliminate the structural balance in the near term and ensure that the board remains solvent. However, I would just want to make a note for the record that there are some mischaracterizations in this memo, and I've tried to correct them earlier in my presentation. So in several cases, it says that the board, the budget office is making a recommendation to increase the license fees, and we do not do that. That's not. So perhaps the board or the board staff is making that recommendation, but the budget office is not making those recommendations. Again, I just tell you what the options are. And then secondly, the information on, and so we were not consulted when this was prepared or drafted, so we just were made aware of it when it became public. Also, the information on page 2, the references to the impact of AB 1536, we would not have included those here because we don't think it's germane to the proposal. The fact is that the fees, the existing fee structure is what's being proposed here. So we would not have included any of that information on page 2 either. Notwithstanding all of that, this board is rapidly heading towards insolvency, and it's going to be insolvent in the next 16 months or so. And regulatory packages typically take 18 to 24 months. So the fastest course of action would be to move these regulations along to eliminate the structural imbalance. And I also add, as Ms. Shields just noted, there are other control agencies. And then also there's also implementation time on the back end. Once these regulations become effective, the Office of Information Services, the DCA IT staff, they need some time to adjust the fee schedules and the accounting of that. And so that does also take time. And also the licensees will have to be notified of the fee increases. And so actual revenues don't just materialize, bam, upon January 1. There is some lag time. With all that, so we are cutting it close. And I just wanted to make note of that. Thank you.
Thank you for that additional information update. Are there other further questions or comments? All right, seeing none, once
Wait.
again, can I have,
Sorry,
go ahead.
I apologize. I just want to reassure the board that I'm working closely with staff to prepare the production documents in anticipation of the board's action today. So we would be initiating the process as soon as we possibly can after we receive authorization from the board, if the board so chooses. So if the board chooses to move this item today, then I want to let the board know that we will be attempting to initiate as quickly as possible so that we can meet the time frame that has been discussed at this meeting. As Mr. Nishimini's mentioned, we have about 1.5 years to get this done. Our goal is to get it done in under a year, and we are working very feverishly to get that accomplished once you've made your decision. So I just wanted to make sure that the board knows that we are preparing in the event the board does it to assist the board whatever you need to help address the structural imbalance. Thank you.
That was very good to hear. Thank you so much. Once again, can I have a motion to approve and a second?
John Deerking will so move.
Thank you.
Adrian Luce will second.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion or questions from the board?
I have a question for Ms. Yamaguchi. This is Tara. I'm sorry, Dr. Mountain. I do have one last little question, okay?
Please. Every question is important.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Yamaguchi, I know you mentioned that we would be looking into a third-party person to help us through, I think, I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth, like projection, we're projecting things out and we're looking at things ahead, so which is a good thing. But I'm wondering, like, when we do that, and we're looking at, just say we raise the fees halfway, and I don't know what we're doing here, but just say of course, we raise the fees. Will the third party people be helping us to then look at if we do that and we get to a point where, okay, so we want to get in the black, right? We want to be able to have a, to where we're not insolvent, but that we don't end up back in the red. So say that, oh, it's not enough. So then we look at raising fees again, or does this third party people look at ways to not do that again? So or say we raise it to the max. We raise it to the max and we raise the fees and somewhere down the line, oh shoot, we're leaning into the red again. So what can they help us do at that point?
That is an excellent question, and Mr. Rooks, I appreciate it so much. Right. So typically, an entity like ours, now the fee charging boards and bureaus, when they need to look at a significant increase in fees and really developing a new system like we are planning to do, well, I think a lot of you have either assigned or contracted for studies or analyses before, and the devil is always in the details. So what we'll need to do is absolutely work, and we'll certainly make certain that the board members, particularly the executive committee, help us to really define the focus of the question that we ask for in this study. So what we're envisioning right now is that we want this study to identify what is the foreseeable future in terms of, the next, let's say 5 to 10 years, because essentially this is math that's way beyond my ability. So what we have to be able to project out with a fair strong amount of confidence here is what we think is what we think the number of licensees we will have, 2 years out, 5 years out, 10 years out, and based on the fees we have now, what that revenue brings. And then based on that, what changes in the fee structure if we make then, what does that look like in terms of the revenue bringing in? And parallel to that, what we have to have the fee study examine is, we've been authorized to start charging the schools a small amount. And as we work forward in the next couple of years, we will be working with the legislature, with our stakeholders, to, I think, build up to a different, a stronger, more robust fee structure for the educational programs. Bluntly, and a little bit of a side note, we believe that the fees that we've been authorized to charge the schools now will bring in something like $600,000 or $700,000 a year, and it costs us something like $2.5 to $3 million a year to operate our education division. It's a little bit imbalanced. So, like I said, so when we charge the entity that does this study, we give them that target. We say, what would the fee structure look like that brought in this figure? And so that plus a lot of other smaller ancillary factors are what we charge this fee study with bringing in. So the shorter answer is what we hope to get from this fee study is, I think, a really good data set that shows us what happens with a variety of different eventualities or changes or contingencies or whatever. So if we make that change, for example, we go ahead with the fee increases we have outlined now, and if, say, example, we do get that stronger revenue from the schools, if we're able to reduce those fees by a certain amount, what does that look like going forward? And actually, and as an ancillary piece there, the work we need to do to implement AB 1536 has the effect of increasing the number of schools. So if we're charging the schools a fee, what does that revenue figure look like? And in increasing schools, we're increasing the number of students and then increasing the number of licensees. What does that figure look like in terms of, eventually the fees? But this is something that it has to cover a fairly long period of time, because we won't see real countable results for probably at least 2 years, more likely 3 or 4. So that's my real long-winded, and I do apologize, my real long-winded explanation of what it would take, what we would hope for from this fee study. Now, to put that in the context of this board's governance, what we need to work toward is so our sunset bill was just approved, and so it takes effect this coming January. We've been given a 3-year cycle, which means that we will be submitting a new sunset review report to the legislature by about this time of year in 2023, and we'll be heard again in 2024 with legislation to reauthorize the board, hopefully, and create some of these changes that we would like to see to take effect at the beginning of 2025. So now that sounds like a long way away, but I guarantee it is going to move like lightning. So really, we have about 1.5 years to put all these things into motion so that when it comes to that 2023 report, the legislature will see this really strong foundation that we're building right now and be able to help us to move to those next stages that we want to see, that will enable us to have a more robust and more diverse revenue stream, which will hopefully enable us to hopefully reduce the burden on our licensees. How's that?
I appreciate you. You know I do. I appreciate you for
Yeah,
sure. And I know
appreciate
that, we talked about, in our conversations about how people are struggling in the moment to even afford anything right now, like that has a license. It's people
Yes.
that struggle to come up with money to even renew their license, and then the domino effect of that with increasing fees. And just know that I know we need to do it. I absolutely know we need to do it. It's going to just create a domino effect with some people that are struggling to come up with the money now, and then we raise it, and then when it's time to renew their license, they're late because they can't afford it, and by the time they get the money, there's an additional fee. So I just think of like the domino effect of people that, who otherwise, I know they're nurses, we're LVNs, but they may not be able to afford it. So when it sounds like I'm pushing back, but I promise you, it's just maybe the voice of many that are going to be concerned about, us raising the fees of the licensees. That's all. And I appreciate you and this entire board. So thank you.
And I appreciate you right back. I appreciate your honesty and your perspective there.
Thank you.
Me too. I just want to say thank you for bringing that up. And I think it is a silent concern that we all have, and that we don't want to see any LVNs or psych techs unable to pay their fees. And because of that, not being able to practice. I think that's a concern for every person on this board and every person at the BBMPT who works there. So definitely food for thought.
Thank you.
Any other discussion or questions from the board?
I think Ms. Luce has her hand up.
Ms. Luz, would you like to speak?
No, sorry about that. I appreciated those comments. Everybody's comments are great.
So, Madam President, I did have one more comment to make, hopefully. I just want to make sure the board members understand that this proposal in front of you will raise it to the cap, to the max. Your max authority under the current law, this proposal will raise all the fees to that max in order to help address the structural imbalance in the short term, as Mr. Nishimini has pointed out. So the staff have done the fee analysis for what it actually costs to provide these services. That is in the attachment that Ms. Yamaguchi had discussed under the list of proposed fee changes. So even when we do raise it to the max, if possible, under this proposal, you're still going to be losing money because of the cost exceeds what we are allowed to currently collect under law at the max. So the fee study would examine long-term what needs to be done to potentially correct that issue for you. And you would need to do further analysis and then seek potential legislative changes to address the long-term structural imbalances that you are still going to be facing, even if this proposal is successful. And we do have a lot of hoops to get through. We're going to do our best to make that happen for you. But we need to make sure you're engaged on this issue because this could potentially have disastrous consequences. So that's why we're bringing it to you today. But also be aware that it is just a temporary proposal to temporarily fix the fee issues and funding issues in the short term. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Yamaguchi, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
No, but I would, of course, thanks Ms. Shields and Mr. Nishimine for their good context for this discussion.
I also would like to thank them. Are there any other discussion or questions from the board? All right, hearing none, I'd like to know, are there any public comments? Moderator, do you see any hands raised?
There are no hands raised in the audience.
Thank you so much. So, assuming that everyone is clear, I will do a roll call and establish who is in favor, who is opposed, and who abstains. Ms. Brown?
Actually, Madam Chair, if you could, it might be for the record, if you'd like to reread the motion.
Absolutely. All right. The motion is to approve the proposed regulatory text and changes to sections 2537, 2537.1, 2590, and 2590.1 as provided in the materials, and direct staff to submit all approved text to the Director of the Department of Consumer Affairs and the Business, Consumer Services, and Housing Agency for review. If no adverse comments are received, authorize the executive officer to take all steps necessary to initiate the rulemaking process, make any non-substantive changes to the package, and set the matter for a hearing. If no adverse comments are received during the 45-day comment period or at the hearing, authorize the executive officer to take all steps necessary to complete the rulemaking and adopt the proposed regulations at sections 2537, 2537.1, 2590, and 2590.1 as noticed. All right. Once again, Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mr. Durking?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Ms. Luce?
Yes, thank you.
Mr. Maxey?
Yes.
Ms. Neblas?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Rooks?
Yes.
And I am also a yes. That means that the motion carries unanimously. Now we'd like to return back to the agenda order. Item 6A. Yes?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
if it's okay with the board, I will jump off the call unless you think you need me to stick around for the rest of the meeting, but my items are completed.
No, and thank you so much for coming to this board and your excellent explanation. We really appreciate it.
Well, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
All right, back to item 6A is the Education Division report. Ms. Cordero, would you please provide this report?
Yes, thank you, Carol. Good morning, everyone. In your packet, you have my Education Division report, and I'm sure you've all read it, and I will take any questions or comments that you have at this time. None? Okay. And then also on the agenda, you can see the review and approval of the fourth quarter executive officer program decisions. So you see we have quite a few of them there. These are the decisions that do not have to come to the full board, that the executive officer has been granted the authority to unilaterally approve after the NEC presents their report to executive officer and legal counsel. So those are all of them for the quarter on the agenda. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to take them. If not.
This is General Counsel Ken Swenson. The executive officer decisions are subject to review, approval, and ratification by the board. So the executive officer's decisions will need to be acted upon by the board during the meeting today as an action item. The recommended form of motion would be as follows: to approve and adopt the executive officer decisions for the third quarter relating to school programs.
Thank you, Mr. Swenson. Do I have a motion?
John Deerkin would so move.
Thank you so much. Do we have a second?
Abraham Hill, I'll second. Sorry, Alita.
Thank you.
That's all right.
Any discussion or questions from the board members? Seeing no questions, any public comment? Moderator, do we have hands?
I do not see
No
any
hands?
in the public. No, ma'am.
Thank you so much. I will do a roll call and establish who is in favor, opposed, or abstains. Ms. Brown?
I was trying to unmute. In favor.
Thank you. Ms. Carpenter?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Durking?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Ms. Luce?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Maxey?
Yes.
Ms. Needless?
Yes.
Ms. Rooks?
Yes.
And I also am a yes. That means it goes through unanimously. Any other questions about the Education Division report? All right. Item 6B. Actually, why don't we take a 10-minute quick break and we'll come back at 11:01. Ten-minute break. I'm hoping that everyone is back. I would like to resume our agenda at item 6B, which is the Education Committee report. I will provide this report. The committee met on Wednesday, October 27, 2021, and the minutes are in the packet. At the meeting, the committee reviewed an inquiry regarding vocational nursing scope of practice and administering prescribed medical cannabis to school-age K-12 patients. And I would like to just thank Ms. Cordero for all her hard work doing her research and putting together everything and working with Mr. Swenson. And I would like to give Mr. Swenson this opportunity to comment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If we could advance item 6E as in Edward to be taken up in connection with the report, then we can proceed to the motion coming out of committee. So the request pending before the board is for an opinion regarding the administration of cannabis in public schools. The agenda materials include the supervising nursing education consultant's informal guidance to Mr. Michael Davis, the attorney who made the inquiry. It's part of the agenda packet at item 6E. Mr. Davis, I believe, is on the line and will be available to answer questions from the board members. So the matter comes out of committee with a motion from committee for the full board to approve and adopt the informal guidance by the supervising nursing education consultant as a precedential declaratory decision by the board. If the board takes this action, the guidance would become the decision of the board and could be relied upon by the board and by the regulated public in the future. The motion comes out of committee, so it doesn't need to be made and seconded at the board meeting today. I'd be happy to answer any questions the members may have on this point. Once again, I believe Mr. Michael Davis is also online to answer any questions. If there are no questions, then it can proceed to general board discussion and public comment. Thank you.
Questions? Comments? Since there seem to be no questions or comments from the board, are there any public comments?
There are no hands raised.
Thank you so much.
Madam Chair, did you want to give Mr. Davis an opportunity to address the members briefly?
Yes, absolutely.
Mr. Davis, your microphone is unmuted.
Oh, thank you very much. And thank you, Mr. Swenson. And thank you to the board for considering this item. Our firm represents a school district in the state who has a student who has a significant medical condition for which cannabis provides relief per his medical doctor. The student has an IEP, an individualized education program, where a multidisciplinary team has determined that for this child to receive a free and appropriate public education, they require access to cannabis medication. This is a situation that's different than what was contemplated under SB 223, known as JoJo's Act, where parents could come on to campus to administer cannabis to a qualified patient student and then remove the cannabis from the school site. This type of situation is different in the sense that the student requires immediate intervention, and that intervention is typically done by a licensed vocational nurse. Throughout the course of dealing with the student, the licensing question naturally arose, and we want to make sure and confirm with the board that there's no jeopardy to the licensee for performing their duties. As Mr. Swenson also alluded to, this is an issue with statewide impact. The issue faced by my client is not unique to my client, and in fact is either currently being faced or is likely to be faced by other school districts in this state. And there is a need for clear guidance to the school districts as employers, as the districts who are caring for the children of the state, as well as the employees who are being asked to perform certain duties and the associations that represent them. So because of the importance of the issue and the statewide impact and likelihood of a recurrence, we ask that you consider the item and adopt a precedential decision to clarify this issue for all of the stakeholders in the state. And I'm happy to take any questions that anybody from the board may have.
This is Nellie, board member. As part of his IEP, there's a plan of execution for the plan itself. When administering the medication, the licensed vocational nurse, why does it have to be immediate and not set up in a schedule?
The reason for this particular student, and I believe if you should have in your board packet a decision from the Office of Administrative Hearings from 2018 called Rincon Valley. The reason for the immediate nature is the cannabis for certain seizure conditions is administered as a rescue medication. So at the onset of a seizure, which can come on at any time. So that's why there's the immediacy, and is not something that can be scheduled. And also, some students have something on schedule, right? A preventative type CBD THC ratio oil that's administered at certain points during the day. So that would be included in an IEP. But in addition to that maintenance medication, there's the rescue medication. So in a care plan, you'll likely see both of these medications with the indication, dosage, route, schedule. So we have both, I think, is the short answer.
Thank you.
Mr. Davis, thank you for your explanation and that additional information. That was very helpful.
Well, thank you very much for your time in considering this.
Any other questions for the board for Mr. Davis? All right. Since I see no further questions, Mr. Swenson, do I need to open it up for additional public comments?
Yes, Madam Chair.
All right. Any further public comment?
There are no hands raised at this time.
Thank you so much, moderator. At this time, I will do a roll call and establish who is in favor, opposed, or abstains. Ms. Brown?
In favor.
Ms. Carpenter?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Durking?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Luce?
Yes.
Mr. Maxey?
Yes.
Ms. Needless?
Yes.
Ms. Rooks?
Yes.
And I am in favor as well. That means it is approved unanimously. We will now move on to program reports from the NECs. Please note, for the following programs, these are not NEC decisions. Rather, the recommendations presented at the Executive Officer Review, the Education and Practice Committee, and/or the full board for action. The reports are posted on the website and recommendations may be updated prior to the open public meeting. We will go to item 6C, reconsideration of provisional approval. Ms. Gomez?
Hello, you've received my report, and do you have any questions?
Seeing no hands raised and hearing no comments, can I have a motion to approve for Quorum College?
John Deerking would so approve. Move rather.
Thank you. Thank you. How about a second?
Alita Carpenter, second.
Thank you. Is there any comment from representatives of the program?
I will unmute Dr. Wayne Williams now. Mr. Williams, you're a panelist and you have full access to your microphone. Mr. Williams, you can speak. You can unmute your microphone.
Oh, there you go. Okay, I'm sorry about that. First of all, I wanted to thank Jessica Gomez for all the work that she's put into our program and helping us to, get on the path to succeed. I did want to mention that we still have a class on the old curriculum that graduated in July. There are 10 of them that are eligible to write. Paperwork's been submitted to the board. And so far, 6 of them have received approval, and 6 of them will be writing in the month of December. And that's from the old curriculum. The new curriculum, we were given approval by the board to start a class in March. However, we asked for a 30-day delay because we wanted to get the faculty additional resources through Kaplan, and we also wanted to look at some new audiovisual materials, what have you. So we wanted to take the time and also review the new curriculum with them and make sure that everybody was on the same page. So we started that class in April, and we started with 16. We now have 15 in the class. The deal with them is they will not graduate until January 14th. So it gives them 10 weeks to get BVMPT approval and then also to write Pearson VUE, the NCLEX exam. So that's going to be tight, but I've already talked to Ms. Gomez about that, and we'll try to see how many we can get there to write prior to the end of that quarter. But I'm not sure how many we're going to get. We are excited about the new curriculum. We're doing multiple evaluations on it basically every other week. We're sitting down and looking at how it's affected the students. The grade, the GPA of students has increased, which is really good for us, which we're excited about that. And we're also excited that we did end up changing the curriculum and integrating the pharmacology, AMP, and nutrition. And that was further validated by a study that I just recently read that was completed by the University of Wichita. And it basically, they were looking at integration of the program of courses, and they said that their student population, they said that pharmacy as a prerequisite was too far removed from clinical experience. And we're seeing that too. When we had the older curriculum, we had the prerequisite pharmacy coming in, faculty would be questioning students, and it was sort of one of those moments for most of them. So now we're able to integrate these things, and we're seeing a much better improved clinical experience now that we've integrated all these things. So, we accept the report. That's the way it is. It goes that way. But we're anticipating that we're going to have much better results. We really are. And I'm looking forward to coming to the next board meeting with more positive, test scores than we've had in the past. So I want to thank the board for, being there for us and supporting not only us, but every other school in California. And so thank you very much. Very much. I do miss the pictures, by the way. I do miss the video. I like seeing the people. So just a comment.
Madam Chair, General Counsel Swenson here. I just wanted to make sure that for the record, we had a clear statement from the representative. Did the representative indicate that they accept the recommendations of the nursing education consultant?
Yes, Mr. Swenson, we do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Swenson, and thank you, Dr. Williams. That was very informative, and we're glad that things are going well for you. Any other public comment at this time?
I see no further hands raised in the public.
I do see that Ms. Luce raised her hand. Would you like to make a comment?
Could I make a comment right now?
Please.
I reviewed this, the document that was provided in the board packet. I had a little bit of a concern about the reoccurring misrepresentation of fact in the on page 15 and somewhere else. That was just came to my mind. That's all I wanted to say. I noticed that. I was concerned about it. That didn't seem like that was an issue anywhere else. So there's nothing to do, but I took notice of that.
Thank you so much. All right, any further comments from the public or the board?
So, Madam Chair, just for clarity's purposes, the motion pending is to approve and adopt the recommendations of the nursing education consultant reflected in the report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Swenson. And we have a motion and a second. I'd like to take a roll call vote. Ms. Brown? Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mr. Durking?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Ms. Luce?
Yes.
Mr. Maxey?
Yes.
Ms. Nieblis?
Yes.
Ms. Rooks?
Yes.
I am also a yes. The motion is approved unanimously. We will move on to item 6D, request to admit students, Gurnick Academy of Medical Arts, San Mateo, Vocational Nursing Program, Ms. Silverman. Ms. Silverman?
Hey, yes, we can hear you. We can hear you. This is the modern, yes. Hey, we can hear you. See. I'm hearing you on WebEx.
I'm not sure everyone else is hearing her. It sounds really grainy.
Yeah.
Ms. Saavedra, on the participant list, for whatever reason, Ms. Silverman's microphone shows as muted, although it sounds like some people are hearing her. I am not hearing her. Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Sorry about that. What I was saying was my report had been submitted, and I wanted to know if the board had any questions for me about the report. The one thing I did want to make publicly is how proud I am of this program. They have gone with their NCLEX pass rates from -16 to positive 8 or 9.
Thank you so much, Ms. Silverman. Are there any questions from the board members?
Madam Chair, Ken Swenson here. The recommended form of motion would be to approve and adopt the recommendations of the nursing education consultant. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved. Alita Carpenter.
Thank you, Ms. Carpenter. And a second?
Adrian Luce, I'll second.
Thank you so much. Is there any comment from the representative of the program?
I will unmute the microphone.
Thank you very much. This is Larissa Brevzina, Director of Gurnik Academy of Medical Arts, Supplemental Vocational Nursing Program. Thank you, board. Thank you, Ms. Silverman. So under your, we're going to continue to work with Faye Silverman as a lot of good leading, a lot of great suggestions. So, and we quicker move to stability of the program. So thank you very much. Really appreciate, just like taking care of us. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Any questions or comments from the board?
This is the moderator. I see Ms. Lisa's hand raised.
Thank you. Go ahead.
I did not mean to raise it.
Thank you. Any public comment?
Not at this time.
Thank you. I would like to take a roll call vote. Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mr. Durking?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Ms. Luce?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Maxey?
Yes.
Ms. Nieblitz?
Yes.
Ms. Rooks?
Yes.
I'm also a yes. That means it is approved unanimously. We can move on to Integrity College of Health. Ms. Gomez?
Hello, you have my report on Integrity Health. I'm happy to answer any questions. I do want to point out that this program has been working very hard on their pass rates and have increased it by 17 percentage points this last quarter. So I am also very proud of this program.
Thank you for that additional information. That's impressive. 17 points is impressive. All right. Can I have a motion to approve?
Alita Carpenter moved to adopt the NEC report and recommendations.
Thank you so much. Do we have a second?
Tara Ruck, second.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Is there a comment from the representative of the program?
Yes, good morning. This is Alice Sorrell Thompson, Program Director for the Vocational Nursing Program at Integrity College of Health. I do want to thank Ms. Gomez for her support and guidance through our transition. We are very, very pleased that our new curriculum and our processes are taking root, and we do agree with our NEC's recommendation.
Thank you so much. Is there any board discussion or questions? Seeing no hands raised, is there any public comment?
There are no hands raised.
Thank you. I'd like to take a roll call vote. Ms. Brown? Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mr. Durking?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Ms. Luce?
Yes.
Mr. Maxey?
Yes.
Ms. Needless?
Yes.
Ms. Rooks?
Yes.
And I am also a yes. Once again, that motion is approved unanimously. We can move on to Premier Career College Vocational Nursing Program. Dr. Fairchild.
You have my report. Do you have any questions?
Yes, I do. This is Board Member Rooks. I'm wondering how the program is doing now. If you can elaborate a little. Thank you.
The class with the new curriculum just started in the summer, so there's no results from the new curriculum. They are still having a high number of students that are not passing the exit exam, so they have very few students testing. I've also recently received complaints about the program, which I am continuing to investigate.
Thank you for that
Okay, yes,
additional.
thank you. I'm sorry. Yeah.
You're welcome.
No worries. All right. Are there any other questions before I ask for a motion? Can I have a motion to approve the NEC's recommendations regarding Premier Career College?
This is Adrienne Luce. I'll make a motion. Thank you.
Thank you. And a second?
Abraham Hill, I'd like to second that.
Thank you. Is there any comment from representatives of the program?
Hi, this is Mr. Bernie Malabanan. I'm the program director for Premier Career College. I would like to thank everybody for the motion for approval for our program. And I would like to thank the guide, Dr. Cindy Fairchild, for her guidance on our implementation of our new curriculum.
Thank you. Any further board discussion or questions?
This is Board Member Rooks. I would like to hear from the gentleman about how he thinks the program is going.
Hi, thank you for that question. Right now, we have two sections or two cohorts that are currently in their online, not online, but on their clinical and the different clinical sites. We are having our lectures in our campus. We don't do it virtual. The annual pass rate in the recent report, our annual pass rate is 67%, which is still within the allowed percentage. It is still within 10% of the annual state average. We have adequate faculty, we have adequate clinical sites that allows us to have our clinical.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other board questions or discussion? Any public comment?
I see no hands raised.
Thank you. I would like to take a roll call vote at this time. Ms. Brown,
Yes.
Ms. Carpenter,
Yes.
Mr. Durking,
Yes.
Mr. Hill,
Yes.
Ms. Luce,
Yes, thank you.
Mr. Maxey,
Yes.
Ms. Nieblus,
Abstain.
and Ms. Rooks.
Yes.
And I am also a yes. The motion is approved by a vote of 8 yeses and 1 abstain. We can now move forward to University of Antelope Valley Vocational Nursing Program. Ms. De La Rosa.
Good afternoon. I have submitted my report for your review. If you have any questions for me, I would be happy to answer them. But last board meeting, we actually extended the probation for University of Antelope Valley. And the low test numbers of the candidates was because they did not have a graduating class since July of 2020. And the next graduating class will not happen until March 2022. They also have a new program director. So I'd like to have that opportunity to work closely with her.
Thank you. Is there a comment from the representative of the program?
Hi, I'm Ahila Mutaya. I'm the Director of Nursing at the University of Antelope Valley. And I read the report and it's very clear and I have no questions from it. And thank you so much, Ms. De La Rosa, for your guidance and your support. And I want to thank the board for this opportunity.
Can I have a motion to approve the recommendations of the NEC for University of Antelope Valley Vocational Nursing Program?
This is Adrienne Luce. I'm happy to make a motion.
Thank you. And a second?
Alita Carpenter, a second.
Thank you so much. We have already heard from the representative of the program. Are there any board discussion or questions?
I actually have a question. Nellie, board member. I am wondering, what kind of student supports does the nursing program have to help the pass rate be increased? I'm just wondering what kind of supports are available for people that are struggling to pass the exams.
Hi, thank you for the question. So we adapted this HESI program that is from the Evolve, and they do have case studies, and they have EAQs, adaptive quizzing, very similar to NCSBN test plan related questions, and we have tutoring sessions that is available. We are fine-tuning our remediation process, and specifically HESI is what we are using primarily. So if that answers your question.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that question. Any further board discussion or questions? Seeing none, any public comment?
No hands raised in the public.
Thank you. I would like to take a roll call vote at this time. Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Ms. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mr. Durking?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Ms. Luce?
Yes.
Mr. Maxey?
Yes.
Ms. Needless, I'm sorry.
It's okay. Yes.
Ms. Rooks?
Yes.
I am also a yes. That is passed unanimously. Board members, please raise your hand or speak up if you have any last comments or questions or anything else for the Education Committee or the division report. Seeing no questions, I just want to thank the Education Division. Thank you so much for all your hard work with these schools. I appreciate it. I really do. And I think everyone on the board does. We'd like to move on now to items 7A and B, the Executive Officers Report. Ms. Yamaguchi.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, members. My written report, of course, is in the packet, but we do have a number of items that we need to have the board review and take action on. But before I branch into those, I wondered if any of the board members had questions on anything else in the written report that I could address. I did want to clarify, of course, that I wrote and submitted my report after Miss Luce had been appointed, but before Miss Needless had been appointed. I didn't want you to feel slighted, so I do welcome you as well.
Thank you. I appreciated your report. This is Adrian. This is Miss Luce.
I also appreciated the report, so thank you.
Thank you so much. So then let me move into then the proposed action items. All of these are related to our work to implement our Sunset Bill AB 1536, specific to our move to change the way, improve the way, really, that we work to improve and to approve new school programs. So the legislation allowed us the freedom to issue bulletins so that we could act quickly and not be subject to the time needed to go through even the emergency regulatory process. Now, these bulletins are going to have to go through that rulemaking process eventually, but this allows us to act right away. Now, Bulletin 1 is sets out the process for approving applications for new school programs in 22. Now, by way of background, what we have laid out here is really similar to the way we've done business historically. All of these steps, all of the information we ask programs for is already grounded in our regs, and what we have done that is substantially different here is we've essentially upended the process. Usually, historically rather, when the NECs have been assigned to a new proposed program, they've walked through piece by piece and said, and worked with the proposing entity to say, okay, let's work on this piece. And when they've finished with that, they'll move on to the next piece and so on and so forth. And while that has worked efficiently, in some cases it has not worked efficiently in others. So much is contingent on both sides of the party working efficiently, effectively, communicating regularly, following deadlines, etc. So what we've done here is that we've asked instead for the programs to submit first their letter of intent that says, yes, I do absolutely plan to follow through. And then after they are assigned, they are asked to submit an entire application packet. So every detailed document that will be required over the course of the cycle must be submitted, completely submitted, before we can really work in earnest to process that and to work through all the steps needed to make sure that the program is ready, willing, and poised to admit a new class. For again, and by way of background, our wait list was the subject of a lot of concern from the legislature. Bluntly, it is a matter of concern for the board and for the staff. What we have determined to do here for the first year, 2022, is to work with the organizations that were placed on the wait list on or before December 31st of 2019. There are about 20 of them, and to work with them for this year. Again, let me part of the issue we've had is that the wait list process has been so very well, let's call it unsubstantial, that essentially a program had been asked to basically say who they are, where I'd like to open a new program, and then they've been on the list. And because the wait list has taken so long to move through, we haven't really asked them to provide a whole lot of concrete work and documentation and hiring of key personnel, because if things are taking 2 years or longer, we didn't want people to invest so much so quickly and then wait. So with this new approach, we believe that we can move from the letter of intent to approved or denied in the scope of a year. It's going to be very tight. The staff is very, very ready, I think, to make this work. The staff has made a lot of we worked through a lot of different scenarios and taken a lot of gaming through and figured out how best to make this flow. So as I said, Bulletin 1 lays out the process for approving new school programs in 2022. It'll only pertain to that first 20 programs. They'll be allowed to, they have the option to submit their letter of intent at the beginning of January. By the time that deadline comes, we'll have a month to process that. Then starting in March, hopefully we'll be able to start assigning NECs to the programs. Following that, when they are assigned, they have the programs have 60 days to prepare and submit their complete applications. Our staff will then receive them, process their response, and analyze them just for completeness, and within 30 days let them know where there are deficiencies. Now there's some time built in, or a little bit of back and forth, to for the staff to say you're missing this piece, or you're missing this section of this piece, and so on and so forth, but not really to delve into the nuts and bolts of the information itself. So by the time, 2 months of work go by at maximum, then I think there's a 6-month period of time in which the programs and the NECs work just assiduously to make sure that everything is ready, and then the NEC will prepare and present a report with a recommendation of they should open a school or they should not open a school. And there's even, of course, an option for they're almost there, let's give them a little bit more time. So that is the tenor of bulletin number 1. It lays out, as I say, the process for us to move forward with. And let me, again, just to be very, very clear, it only pertains to those first 20 proposals for the year of 2022. Madam Chair?
Thank you, Ms. Yamaguchi, for that very good report. Can I have a motion to approve? Mr. Swenson, can you help us with what the motion needs to be specifically?
Certainly, Madam Chair. For a point of clarification, I'd like to note that the agenda refers to bulletin number 3, which is agendized as item A9. That bulletin has not been published, so that particular item, the board cannot act upon it at this time. So the remaining items have all been published. The majority of the items were published on October 19th. Bulletin number 2 being the exception, and that was published on the 21st. So the first recommended motion would be for the board to make findings that those matters were published as noticed, specifically bulletin number 1, which is item A1, the letter of intent to submit form, A3, the initial program application instructions, A4, the initial program application instructions, A5, the application for initial approval, A6, the application for initial approval for psychiatric technicians, A7, and the initial approval for new school programs checklist, A8, were all published on October 19th, 2021. And that item A2, bulletin number 2, new fees for education programs, is published on the 21st of October 2021. So my recommendation is for the board to have a motion making those findings before it moves on to approval of the forms themselves. Thank you.
Do we have a motion?
This is Adrienne Luce. I'll make a motion.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Abraham Miller, second.
Thank you. Is there any board discussion or questions regarding this motion?
Point of clarification, this is Nellie, board member. So what exactly is happening to bulletin number 3 again?
That was not posted or published, so it's not ready for board consideration at this time.
So it cannot be included in this motion, correct?
That's correct. It's not included in the pending motion.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion or questions from the board?
Yes.
All right, oh, go ahead. Seeing none, are there any public comments?
There are no hands raised.
Thank you, Ms. Saavedra. All right, I would like to take a roll call vote. Ms. Brown?
Madam Chair, before you do that, let
Yes.
me make absolutely certain that the board has the clearest motion. And Mr. Swenson, were you envisioning going piece by piece or one motion to approve all of these that would be taking effect January 1st?
The pending motion is simply to make the factual finding that these items were posted prior to the board meeting.
Ah, perfect. Thank
There'll
you
be
so
a-
much. And
There'll
then
be a
we'll go
follow-up
through.
recommendation regarding approval of the items.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
And just for clarification, then we'll do bulletin 1 and bulletin 2 separately, correct?
Right, and then the individual forms. Perfect.
Awesome, thank you so much. Okay, is the board clear on what they're voting on? If not, please make a comment now. All right, I think we're ready,
So,
okay?
this is Nellie, board member again. So I'm just looking at bulletin. Let me see. So the bulletin 1. So are the forms underneath bulletin 1, or is it just the bulletin separately that we're voting on? The
Ms.
different
Neeblis,
forms?
this motion is to acknowledge that everything has been legally posted per the authorizing legislation. And then we'll go bulletin 1, 2, and the individual forms. And there'll
Thank
be
you.
a separate motion for each one.
Okay, there's a separate motion for each one. Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you.
So just for clarification, the pending motion is for the board to make the factual findings that these bulletins and forms were posted as indicated.
Okay.
Clarify factual finding in layman's terms, please.
The board will be making a determination that, having reviewed the matter, that the statement of fact is correct, that these matters were posted as indicated.
Understood. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Brown? Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mr. Durking?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Ms. Luce?
Yes.
Mr. Maxey? Mr. Maxey? Mr. Maxey, are you able to vote?
I don't see Mr. Maxey on the line. I believe he may have dropped. Give me one moment.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Saavedra.
I do not see Mr. Maxey in the audience.
Thank you. We will move forward. Ms. Neblett?
Yes.
Ms. Rooks?
Yes.
Thank you. And I am also yes. So the motion is approved by a vote of 8 I don't know what we say, 1 unable to vote. All right.
So Madam
we're gonna
Chair,
go-
then we on the bulletin one itself.
So
if the board members had any questions on the content of bulletin 1.
Processing applications for approval of new school programs in 2022, correct?
Correct.
All right. Can I have a motion to approve?
Alita
On
Carp
bulletin,
to approve bulletin number 1.
thank you. And a second?
John Deerking will second.
Thank you. Any discussion or questions about bulletin 1? Seeing no hands raised and no questions, any public comment on bulletin 1?
There are none.
Thank you. I would like to do a roll call vote. Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Thank
You
you.
remember
Ms.
right
Carpenter?
Yes.
Mr. Durking?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Ms. Luce?
Yes.
Mr. Maxey, is Mr. Maxey still off the call?
Yes, I do not see him.
Thank you. Ms. Nieblis?
Yes.
Ms. Rooks?
Yes.
I'm also a yes, so that motion is approved by a vote of 8. All right, is there a motion for bulletin number 2?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
General Counsel Swenson here. The recommended form of the motion would be as follows: to approve bulletin number 2, effective November 20th, 2021, which is the 30th day after it was posted.
Oh, thank you so much.
Alita Carpenter, so moved.
Thank you. And a second?
Abraham Hill is second.
Thank you so much. Any board discussion or questions on the new fees for education programs? Seeing none, any public comment?
There are none.
Wow, thank you so much. I would like to do a roll call vote. Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Ms. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mr. Durking?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Ms. Luce?
Yes.
Mr. Maxey? Still off the call, yes?
Let me look in the audience and see if he's come back on.
Thank you.
I do not see Mr. Maxey in the audience.
Thank you so much. Ms. Nieblis?
Yes.
Ms. Rooks?
Yes.
And I am also a yes. The motion is approved by a vote of 8. All right.
And Madam Chair, Ken Swenson once again. The motions on the remaining items,
Yes.
the various forms, those can be made effective immediately because they were posted on the 19th of October. So those can be posted, or excuse me, the motions on those can be effective immediately. Thank you.
And Mr. Swenson? Do we need to do these each one separately?
They can be taken up together. If you want to do that, the motion would be something like this. Would be to approve the letters of intent, application instructions, applications, and checklist identified in the agenda at item 7A 2 through 8. And the approval would be effective immediately. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have a motion for that approval?
Alita Carpenter, so moved.
Thank you. And a second?
Abraham Miller, second.
Thank you. Is there any board discussion about items 2 through 8? Seeing no discussion, is there any public comment?
I see no hands raised.
Thank you. I'd like to do a roll call vote. Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Ms. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mr. Durking?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Ms. Luce?
Yes.
Mr. Maxey? Still not there, Ms. Saavedra?
No, ma'am.
Thank you. Ms. Neblet?
Yes.
Ms. Rooks?
Yes.
And I am also a yes. This motion is approved by a vote of 8. All right. We can move forward. Let's see.
Madam Chair, the next item in order would be 7B, discussion and possible action regarding the board's 2022 to 2024 calendar. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that Ms. Yamaguchi?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank
Thank you very much. So before you is a very rough calendar. 2022, of course, we were able to put some fairly concrete dates together, and 23 and 24 a little more conceptual. But we wanted to make certain that the board members see a complete picture of about when we would probably meet. So the board meetings themselves have been put together based on holidays, based on other meetings, etc. And we've tried to go through and plug in when we believe approximately our committees would be meeting. So we have like I say, this is a proposed calendar for the next 3 years. It is, of course, always subject to change. So if something does come up, the board can certainly move to amend it. But this also gives us the opportunity to place these dates on our website so that our stakeholders can also be planning accordingly to attend our meetings. So as I said, the next 3 years, this is our skeletal at least plan, but 22 is fairly well fleshed out. If I could answer any questions. Oh, actually, let me back that up. Now for the meetings themselves, the board meetings themselves, generally speaking, we have had our board meetings take 2 or 3 days historically when we've been able to meet in person. Now that's included 1 day for petitioner hearings 1 day for the board meeting, business meeting itself, and half of the time, twice a year, we've included a third day for board training and planning and basic board development activities. What we have done here for the purposes of planning, again, is we've put together, we've blocked out a total of 3 days for each of the proposed board meetings. We will not be needing all 3 of those days each time, and we won't be needing them for the next couple of meetings probably at all, because I believe for at least February, we're anticipating to continue to meet virtually, and then moving forward in May, possibly being able to come back together to meet in person. But we have also are waiting for the board's enforcement committee to continue studying our petitioner hearing matters, and to basically make some recommendations about when we should go back to our regular schedule of hearings. So as I say, this is, for the board meeting dates that we've blocked out 3 days for each board meeting, the board members should know that we probably will not need all 3 of those dates each time. And so we'll do certainly a little bit of advance notice, but I think it'll be pretty straightforward, that yes, we will need 2 days. Yes, we will need 3 days. So the calendar itself is gone month to month, year to year. And so you'll see that on the left-hand side, there's the date, and a lot of them, of course, are to be determined, especially the committee meetings, and blocked off the state and federal holidays. I've tried to bold the places where the board meeting will take place. Questions?
No, but I appreciate you doing this calendar out so far. That's great.
It's a certain amount of nerdiness here.
Much appreciated.
So we will need a motion to approve this, Madam Chair.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve?
This
The
is Ms.
20.
Yeah,
The-
John Durkin would so approve.
Nice. And a
Miss-
second.
Ms. Luce will second.
Thank you. Any board discussion or questions? Seeing no hands raised and hearing no discussion, any public comment?
There are none.
Thank you. I will take a roll call vote. Ms. Brown,
Yes.
Ms. Carpenter,
Yes.
Mr. Durking,
Yes.
Mr. Hill,
Yes.
Ms. Luce,
Yes.
Mr. Maxey,
Mr. Maxey is not in the audience. He has not.
Thank you.
I've reached out to him numerous times and no reply.
Thank you. Ms. Nablus,
Yes.
thank you. Ms. Rooks,
Yes.
and I am also a yes. That is, motion is approved by a vote of 8. Thank you, Ms. Yamaguchi.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
All
That
right.
concludes my report.
Thank you. Item 7C is the executive committee report. The notes from the meeting are in the packet. Are there any questions on this report? Seeing no questions, we will move on to item 8. We have an update from the Department of Consumer Affairs. Mr. Brian Clifford from the DCA Executive Office is joining us to provide an update. Mr. Clifford, welcome.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect, thank you. Hello, I'm Brian Clifford with the Department of Consumer Affairs Executive Office. I want to thank you for allowing me the opportunity to provide a department update to the board today. And before I get started, I just wanted to welcome members Luce and Niblas to the board. I wanted to congratulate you on your appointments and thank you for your willingness to serve. I'd first like to talk about COVID-19 safety measures and telework. DCA appreciates all board members, committee members, and staff who have continued to serve through a pandemic that has affected all of us in many ways. We're working together to find the right balance of staying connected and productive while keeping safe and healthy. DCA and its boards and bureaus continue to look to the future and use lessons learned to identify long-term efficiencies and policy changes. Staff are working in the office to provide the most effective consumer protection and public service, while also utilizing telework where appropriate. Next, I'd like to chat about testing and vaccine verification. California has implemented enhanced safety measures for state employees and workers in healthcare settings. State employees must show proof of vaccination or be subject to regular COVID-19 testing. DCA's testing program kicked off in early October with the launch of the DCA Headquarters 1 pilot testing site. Select programs are designated to test at HQ1, and the list of programs recently expanded due to the capabilities of the site. Board and committee members must follow health and safety protocols if they plan to visit a DCA location or attend any in-person board meeting. Members must verify vaccination or follow testing protocols. Please communicate any plans for in-person meetings as soon as possible so that DCA can assist with coordination of teleconference options for the public, vaccine verification, and COVID-19 testing. Next, I'd like to discuss remote meetings. DCA recognizes the difficulty of planning for future meetings as the pandemic continues to evolve. As the law stands today, remote meetings are allowed until January 31, 2022. After which time meetings will need to be in person in accordance with all aspects of the Open Meetings Act. We don't know what additional changes to the law may be coming, but I think we all recognize there are benefits to remote meeting options, such as increased public participation, cost savings, and a lower carbon footprint due to reduced travel. DCA encourages boards and bureaus to continue utilizing remote meetings this year to protect the health of staff, board members, and the public. And we will keep you updated on any additional changes to meeting requirements. Moving on, a note about appointments and recruitment. Currently, the board has 2 vacancies, a licensed vocational nurse and a psychiatric technician seat, both appointed by the governor. DCA's communications team has been working on a new communications toolkit to assist boards with member recruitment, which will be available in multiple languages before the end of the year. In the meantime, I encourage individuals who are interested in serving as a board member to visit the Board Member Resource Center on DCA's homepage to apply for an appointment. And next, I'd like to discuss scam alerts. DCA has been made aware of various scams affecting boards and bureaus. We have shared information about these scams on DCA's website and social media. Please take a moment to visit the DCA Fraud Alert website, which you can find by going to DCA's website, dca.ca.gov, to learn about these scams and how to protect yourself from malicious individuals. And finally, a reminder about required board member trainings and DCA's learning management system. As a reminder, 2021 is a mandatory sexual harassment prevention training year. This means all employees and board members are required to complete the training this year, which is rapidly approaching. Board members can access this training through the learning management system, which is DCA's training portal. We have created profiles for each of you in the LMS and informed your executive officer of the steps you'll need to take to log in and access the training. Board and Bureau Relations is also happy to assist you with any questions or concerns you may have about using DCA's LMS. And that concludes my update. As always, Board and Bureau Relations is here to help, and if there's anything we can do to assist the board, please do not hesitate to reach out. And with that, I will hand it back over. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Clifford. Are there any questions from the board for Mr. Clifford?
Yes, I have a couple as a new board member. This logging into this portal, who do I check in with to see what my password and my password and sign in is going to be?
Thank you for that question. I'll be honest, I'm not 100% sure about the process for accessing the LMS. I don't know if Elaine, you might have more specific information on how to do that. If not, that's certainly something that I'll have DCA staff reach out to you directly to help with.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Elaine. Yes, absolutely. Our staff is going to be probably working and contacting each of the board members individually, because one, we need to make certain that the board members either open or reopen their DCA email account and addresses, and two, to make certain that we have you all accessing the learning management system and all the other documents that need to happen. So we'll be reaching out to you over the next few weeks.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Thank you, Elaine. Any further questions from the board? Thank you again, Mr. Clifford, for coming and giving us that presentation. And now we will take a 45-minute lunch break and reconvene at 1 p.m. And I would like to take a roll call vote to reestablish the quorum. Ms. Brown? Ms. Brown, are you present? Okay, we'll come back and ask again. Ms. Carpenter?
Yes,
Thank you.
I am present.
Mr. Durking?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Hill?
I'm here.
Thank you. Ms. Luce?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Maxey? Ms. Saavedra, would you mind checking to see if Mr. Maxey is in the audience, please?
Dr. Mountain, I've checked, he's not here in the audience yet.
Thank you. Ms. Neeblis?
Present.
Thank you. Ms. Rooks?
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. Let's try Ms. Brown one more time. Ms. Saavedra, do you?
I
Ms.
see
Brown,
Mr.
are you there?
Maxey. I see Mr. Maxey's phone in the attendance. That's the 202-230.
Awesome. Mr. Maxey, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Excellent. Ms. Brown? Okay. So Ms. Brown is not with us. Should we wait another minute, Elaine, or should we just go ahead?
Mr. Swenson hasn't logged. Oh, there he is. Never mind. Why don't we go ahead, Madam Chair?
Okay. So we are at licensing and evaluation. I didn't check to see if Ms. Rainey was logged on.
This is the moderator. Can you give me 30 seconds, please?
Sure.
Ms. Rainey is logged on. She's logged on now.
Thank you. She can start whenever she's ready.
One moment.
Hello,
There we go.
and you can hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you, Vicki. Right. I'd like to start by introducing myself. I am Candace Rainey, and I served as the board's enforcement chief from August of 2018 through June of 2020. I returned to the board as a licensing and administration division chief officially about 7 weeks ago. I'm really looking forward to reconnecting with those of you that I already know and getting to know those of you that I've not had the pleasure to meet just yet. The licensing division report is in your packet as agenda item 9B. I'd like to provide a staffing update as the staffing in the licensing division is ever changing. On Monday, November 15th, 2 new staff joined the licensing division. I'd like to welcome Nicholas Gonzalez and Tracy Denor. We are thrilled to have them. The licensing division currently has 3 program technician 2 positions vacant. Recruitment for those positions is well underway, and interviews will be conducted during the week of November 29th. The division also has a supervising program technician vacancy and a staff services analyst vacancy. Shelley Brown and her team are working vigorously to recruit and hire for all of the current vacancies. Despite the challenges of multiple vacancies, the licensing division continues to do an outstanding job of meeting and exceeding the established goals and expectations. On a personal note, I'd like to say thank you to the administration and licensing division staff. Since my return to the board, everyone has been so gracious and welcoming, and I'm really enjoying getting to know everyone. Thank you.
Thank you for that report. Are there any questions from the board?
Yes, this is Nellie. As a new member, I'm looking at my packet and I think I'm missing that section, where I was wondering if, who just finished speaking, if they could just give an overview of what they do and how, and a quick overview of what they do and what they're most responsible for, just to give me a good
Sure.
understanding.
Of course. I'm Candace Rainey, and I'm the chief of the licensing and administration divisions. So obviously licensing is the division of the board that handles all of the applications and licensing functions for our licensees. The administration division takes care of a number of things, including budgets, legislation and regulations, human resources, trying to think of some of the others, but kind of those more administrative type functions. Does that help?
Yeah, that's fine. I'm just missing part of the packet. It's probably my misprinting. But thank you very much.
Of course.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Any public comment? All right, we can move on to the licensing committee report B. Ms. Carpenter.
Yes, thank you. We met November 4th via WebEx, of course. We are thrilled to have Ms. Rainey back. Thank you so much for coming back. She more or less imparted the same information to us to me, I guess I should say. I'm a one-person member. By the way, there's a vacancy on the board, and I will welcome you with open arms. Any of you new members who would care to join the licensing committee, please consider it. Let's see, in spite of staffing vacancies and processing times have continued unabated, the phone calls are answered quickly and efficiently, and the licensing division is doing very well. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Ms. Carpenter. Are there any comments or questions from the board on the licensing report? Is there any public comment?
There are no hands raised at this time.
Thank you so much. Item 10A is the Legislative and Regulations Committee report. Mr. Durking will provide this report.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Just as a bit of the rulemaking update on AB 2138, substantial relationship and rehabilitation criteria for psychiatric technicians. The changes to the California Code of Regulations, sections 2578 and 2579, to comply with the provisions of AB 2138 were approved by the Office of Administrative Law on September 24th, 2021. The amendment of section and the note were filed 9/24/21 and operative on 9/24/21, also pursuant to California Government Code section 11343.4 B3, registered 2021 number 39. Filing deadline specified in Government Code section 11349.3A extended the 60 calendar days pursuant to the executive order N40-20 and an additional 60 calendar days pursuant to executive order N-71-20. As the corollary or parallel for vocational nurses, substantial relationship on AB 2138, rehabilitation criteria, changes to CCR sections 2521 and 2522 were filed with the Office of Administrative Law on October 18th, 2021, and are currently under review. Yesterday would have been the 30th day following submission to the Office of Administrative Law, and as of today, I think we're still pending notification from the Office of Administrative Law. On the fee schedule, this item was advanced and acted on earlier. I don't think there would be anything else, but I would just, as a courtesy, ask Ms. Yamaguchi if there was anything else on the fee schedule.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, that business is completed. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Emergency regulation concepts to implement the provisions of AB 1536. I would defer also to Ms. Yamaguchi.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, as we very briefly talked about in the executive officer's report, we have the responsibility to respond to our sunset revision bill, our sunset renewal bill, 1536. And while we've been given a little bit of leeway to advance some issues via the bulletins that the board just approved a bit ago, we need to, of course, put together emergency regulations to clarify and put forward the rest of the policies and procedures that we plan to do. First, to confirm the 2022 actions that were already underway, and then to plan out for 2023 and 2024. So what we have been working on at this point with council have been to start drafting the concepts for the emergency regulations. What we plan to see is to have those concepts in front of the board at the February board meeting, and then to be adopted by the board for the May meeting. Mr. Chair?
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you very much. And then program pass standards for VN programs in schools for the preparation of psych text. Ms. Yamaguchi.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. As some of the board members will recall, this has been an issue that we've been working on for quite some time now. But given the pressures of the past year, we were forced to back burner this issue for a bit. But we have been working on developing the language and working on developing the packet to move it forward. So once we are able to finalize the rulemaking for the fee schedule and a couple other things, we'll be getting back to work on this. But it's a really important issue that we hope to put into our rulemaking very, very soon. If there's any questions on that, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions from the board? Thank you very much. That brings us to D, a rulemaking calendar for 2022. We have attached in the packet a proposed rulemaking calendar for 2022 for the board's review and consideration. Yesterday, November 18th, the Legislative and Regulations Committee moved to approve the rulemaking calendar for referral to the full board. Are there any questions or comments regarding the calendar or the referring motion from the committee? Okay, very well, thank you. So Madam Chair, it was moved out of the committee to approve the rulemaking calendar for 2022 as submitted.
So I have to defer to Mr. Durkin. Do we, since it was moved in the committee, do we need to have a motion and a second, or do we just ask for discussion and questions?
Madam Chair, you don't need a motion or a second. The motion is out of committee, but you do need to ask for a discussion and public comment.
All right. Is there discussion on the rulemaking calendar for 2022 at the board? Discussion or questions? Seeing no hands raised, is there any public comment?
There are no hands raised.
Thank you. I'd like to take a roll call vote at this time. Ms. Brown? Ms. Saavedra, is Ms. Brown online, or did she just not come back after lunch?
She's back in the meeting. She's a panelist.
Oh, wonderful. Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Thank you. And your vote was?
Yes. My vote is
Thank you.
yes.
Thank you. Ms. Carpenter?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Durkin?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Ms. Luz?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Maxey?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Nieblis?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Rooks?
Yes.
Thank you. And I am also a yes. The motion was approved unanimously.
Thank you, Madam
Thank
Chair.
you.
That that concludes the report. Thank you.
Thank you. Please raise your hand, board members, if you have any other questions or comments on the Legislative and Regulations Committee report. Seeing no further questions, is there any public comments or questions?
There are no hands raised in the public.
Thank you. We can move on to item 11A, which is the Enforcement Division report. Ms. Wood, would you please provide this report?
Yes, thank you. My name is Antoinette Wood. I am the Enforcement Division Chief. For our new members, the Enforcement Division ensures the safety of the consumer by investigating complaints, reviewing arrest and conviction documents, and working with the state attorney to have licensees disciplined. As the current status of the division, as you've seen, the division is in an incredible position with a number of complaints and case aging. Ms. Saavedra, if you could go to the next slide to show our Enforcement Division statistics. Currently, our complaints are under 1,000, which is an incredible accomplishment for us. Does anyone have any questions about the Enforcement Division statistics? All right, so I will go ahead and talk about the manager training that we're working on. In order to continue to ensure that the division is professionally developing both the staff and the managers, the division recently held a training for all of the enforcement managers that specifically looked at how to enhance staff skills. This training, called Strength Finders, focuses on understanding the manager's strengths and then working on developing those strengths. This is very different from most training classes, as we don't really discuss weaknesses or flaws. We focus on what we are good at and how to use our strengths to do our work better. Ms. Saavedra, if you could go back and play the video. While Ms. Saavedra is working on that, I'll talk to you about our outreach plan. So a large component to ensuring licensee compliance is outreach. We need to guarantee that they have a clear understanding of the scope of their practice and the possible pitfalls within their field. In the coming months, the Enforcement Division will be working with the Enforcement Committee to create outreach opportunities, and we hope that the board will consider approving a motion coming out of the committee about creating videos, such as the one that we'll be playing shortly. This video is a suicide prevention PSA from the State Athletics Commission. Ms. Saavedra, I don't hear any sound. So this video was also included in the links. I'm hoping that you were able to see it with sound. So what we're hoping that you will consider to approve is for us to work with our Public Affairs Office, and that we will, with the guidance of the Enforcement Committee, create small videos and vignettes. The first we would like to do would be a suicide prevention video. As many of you know, COVID has been very rough on the healthcare field, and we would like to be able to have some open and honest conversations.
Freddie Roach has been removed from the U.S. Boxing Club after an amateur tournament. As an amateur boxer, I got a chance to fight in Montreal at the Olympic Stadium, and I lost the fight. And I said, how could I lose the fight? And I went over and yelled at one of the judges, and I kicked one of the buckets. I got thrown off the U.S. team for that. I got sent home. I was angry. And the thing is, being angry didn't help me. You know, I can't fight amateur anymore. They threw me off the team, and I didn't know which way to go. My father took me to Las Vegas to meet Eddie Fight, and he changed my life. Historic match here at Boston Garden. Freddie Roach and his two brothers are all set to appear. He made me a better fighter, and he made me get back in the game. Freddie Roach has ended his career. Parkinson's is said to be the blame. Boxing and mixed martial arts come with many challenges and pressures. I've been there. Freddie Roach has been inducted in the World Boxing Hall of Fame. Best boxing trainer of all time. Remember, there's always somebody there volunteer and talk to, and they can make you feel better. Keep digging down deep and work hard. There are so many people out there who care about you. If you or a loved one have been close to suicide, call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 800-273-8255. We are all in your corner.
A message by the California State Athletic Commission.
So as you can see from the video, we would like to create something similar, obviously featuring nurses, perhaps even board members who wish to participate with us. Once we receive approval from this, we'll also look at creating other videos. We would like to, as we said, work with DCA HQ to use resources. We want to be able to show these presentations to current licensees, applicants, and current students to help them understand the commitment they're making as a nurse or psychiatric technician. And that concludes my report. Does anyone have any questions?
No, but I just want to say this is Carol Mountain. That's a very commendable project that you guys are undertaking, and I really appreciate the fact that it will be available for students as well. I think that the pandemic has been a big wake-up call, and the severity and the seriousness of what a nurse does is definitely weighed on students as they come into this field. Are there any, actually I should ask, can I have a motion to approve proceeding with the production of the suicide prevention public service video?
So moved.
And who is that?
Nelly Nieblas.
Thank you. And a second?
I'll second. This is Kenneth Maxey.
Thank you. Is there any discussion or questions? Seeing no hands raised and hearing no discussion from the board, is there any public comment?
There are no hands raised in public.
Thank you. I will do a roll call and establish who's in favor, opposed, or abstains. Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mr. Durking?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Ms. Luce?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Maxey?
Yes.
Ms. Nieblas?
Yes.
Ms. Rooks?
Yes.
I am also a yes. That is passed unanimously. And thank you for that. Is there any other further comment on the enforcement committee?
Madam Chair, General Counsel Swenson here.
Yes.
I think you still need to call the committee report.
Yeah.
You consider the division report, but we need to call the committee report. Thank you.
And I believe that is Mr. Maxey.
That would be me. Thank you, Madam Chair. So first, let me start off by giving kudos to Ms. Woods and her team for doing a fantastic job with the division. Just wanted to make that a point before I start my report. So we've been doing some fantastic things. One thing that I'll start off with is recently the committee requested the division have their staff participate in the equity training. As you all know, unconscious bias can directly affect underprivileged communities and in healthcare and in health. For the enforcement division, we wanted to ensure we were making the right decisions about licenses for the right reasons. The entire division took the unconscious bias training together, and there was an excellent feedback from the managers and staff. The training allowed everyone to discuss their unconscious bias and look at things from a new perspective. For many of the staff, this was their capstone class from the skills enhancement training that works on fundamental skills and skill enhancements. Second accomplishment, I'm really proud to say that we've been able to work on, is the website updates. And in order to ensure that this was done properly and supporting our licensees and the consumers, the Enforcement Committee has made some recent changes to the website. One, for the licensees, for the Enforcement Division is unable to tell someone in the advance if their application will be approved. They have collected the applicable legal provision and placed these resources on the website page dedicated to applicants. Secondly, for consumers, to support complaints, we clearly articulated the complaint investigation process and included a handy graphic for those who are more visual learners. Next, we moved the disciplinary guidelines and uniform standards update. Currently, the probation unit is working on updating the guidelines in an effort to offer better support to our board members, stakeholders, and licensees. Some of the highlights of the changes include a decision tree, which creates more consistent decisions and acts as a knowledge transfer vehicle. And the enforcement goals we've talked about in our committee. As you all know, in 2017, the division had a complaint backlog that is, at its peak in December 2017, resulted in the board having more than 1,721 open complaints. The division was in disarray with multiple open positions. As of September 2021, we have 942. Our case aging is rapidly dropping, and we are meeting our performance measures at a greater rate each month. Moving on to strategic planning. As we address the backlog and create effectiveness, the team is allowing, the deficiencies that allow us to meet our performance measures. The Enforcement Committee will diligently ensure that we support and guide a consistency, successful enforcement division using the strategic plan that we've developed. As Antoinette Woods discussed in our meeting, our goals are to ensure that there is a clear knowledge transfer plan with routine and regular milestones. I'll move on to petition hearing update. The committee is studying right now the effect of the referring petitions for reinstatement or for the modification or early termination of probation for hearing and proposed decision by an administrative law judge. As the members will recall, the board voted to refer petitioner hearings to the Office of the Administrative Hearings at the February 2021 meeting. The board took this action to reduce the backlog of petitions due to the limited number of hearings, slots, and regular board meetings. At the time of the board action, petitions were being set for hearings before the board 2 years out. I am grateful and pleased to report that as a result of referring the petitions to OAH, the backlog of the petitions has been eliminated. To put this accomplishment in perspective, I note that if the petitions had not been referred to OAH, approximately 50 petitions would still have to be heard. That means that some 50 petitions for reinstatement for the modifications or early termination of probation have been heard that would not have been heard if the board had not taken these actions. In human terms, the action of the board to refer to the petitions to the OHA for hearing means that 50 people have had their matters heard or would not otherwise be heard. Having the petitions have decided quite literally has allowed the petitioners to obtain results and move on with their lives years before they otherwise would have. At the same time, I note that the board has retained full authority to decide the petitions referred to OAH for hearing. The process is the same as for discipline cases. An administrative law judge hears the petitions and makes the proposed decisions. The board has retained the power and the authority to accept or reject the proposed decisions of the administrative law judge, just like a discipline case, and may, if necessary, hold a recommended decision for deliberation in closed session. Finally, to date, the board has adopted all of the proposed decisions through the mail balloting process and has had to hold any for discussion in closed session, indicating that the majority of the board members agree with the factual findings and the conclusions of law made by the administrative law judge in each of those cases. The committee plans to continue to study the trends and to develop further recommendations for handling petitioner hearings once sufficient data has been obtained and analyzed, with the goal of preventing the development of a backlog in the future. And with that, I conclude my remarks, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much, Mr. Maxey. That was a very positive report. All right. Are there any further questions about the Enforcement Committee report or the Enforcement Committee from the board? Seeing none, are there any further public comment?
There are no hand raised at this time.
Thank you. Are there any public comment on items not on the agenda?
I see no hands raised for any questions out in the public.
Thank you. Item 13 is suggestions for future agenda items. Board members, do you have any suggestions for future agenda items? I actually have one that I would like to put out there. Ms. Yamaguchi, is the BVMPT currently using NURSYS nurses through NCSBN?
Yes, Madam Chair, we do.
Excellent. Then I don't have anything for future agenda items. I didn't know the BRN wasn't using it until last week, and I was like, whoa, I better ask to make sure we're using it. All right. Any other suggestions for future agenda items?
Madam Chair, this is General Counsel Swenson.
Yes.
I would recommend placing the implementation of 1536 on calendar for the next board meeting in order to revisit the bulletins and forms that were approved today. The ability of the board to actually adopt those is granted after January 1st. So out of an abundance of caution, I'm recommending that the board revisit that issue after the first of the year, and at that time move to ratify its actions today and to adopt the bulletins and related documents that were approved today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Swenson. I think that's an excellent suggestion. Are there any other suggestions for future agenda items? Are there any public comments?
There are none.
Before we adjourn this meeting, Ms. Yamaguchi, I believe that the board should stay for closed session. Is that correct?
Madam Chair, I believe there is. a closed session issue to discuss.
And I guess because we haven't done this before, do we just stay on this, in this meeting and let everybody else leave? Is that the idea?
This is the moderator. What I will do is I will close down the public, lock the meeting. I believe the only people that should be is the disciplinary manager, board members, and council.
Thank you. So we should just stay on, Vicki?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you so much.
Yeah, I'll let everybody know as soon as everybody's cleared the public room and the room is locked.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. To the public, thank you for participating. If you can please leave the room now, we will adjourn to closed session.